from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, this is Free Speech Nation with me, Howie. On the show tonight, growing support for the mother jailed for social media posts to be released. More female athletes have said enough is enough, and council staff are being told to take a white privilege test, which I failed. And Sir Sadiq Khan sparks outrage over his Eid message, and some comedians answering some crazy cultural developments from a live studio audience. But first, the news with Aaron Armstrong.
Thank you very much, Josh. Very good evening to you. 7 o'clock. Aaron Armstrong here in the GB newsroom. The Conservative leader, Kemi Badenoch, is facing criticism for saying she's not surprised two Labour MPs were denied entry to Israel. Abdissam Mohammed, who represents Sheffield Central on the left, and the MP for Early and Woodley, Yuan Yang, were deported after being accused of planning to spread anti-Israel hatred. Ms Badenoch says Israel has a right to control its borders, adding she thinks it's shocking Labour has MPs that other countries don't want to allow in. The Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, says her comments are disgraceful. The Lib Dem leader, Ed Davey, says she's shown unbelievably poor judgment. More than 50 countries have contacted the White House to start trade talks since Donald Trump announced his tariffs. That's according to Kevin Hassett, one of his top economic advisors. Well, he's denied the tariffs are part of a Trump strategy to crash financial markets to pressure the US Federal Reserve to cut interest rates. Indonesia and Taiwan, meanwhile, say they won't impose retaliatory tariffs on the US. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will meet the US President for trade talks tomorrow. Sir Keir Starmer has reiterated his disappointment over Trump's new tariffs in further calls with world leaders. He's expected to announce a series of pro-growth measures later this week, and his words were mirrored earlier by the Chief Secretary to the Treasury. A father and his 10-year-old daughter have been named as the two victims of a fire at a caravan site near Skegness. 48-year-old Lee Baker and his daughter Esme from the Nottingham area died when a fire broke out at Golden Beach Holiday Park in Ingomells in the early hours of Saturday morning. The family say they're utterly devastated. An investigation into the cause of the blaze is ongoing. Marine Le Pen, the French politician, is committed to keep fighting against her criminal conviction, which has barred her from standing for the presidency in 2027. The leader of the right-wing national rallies promised her supporters she'll appeal, and she's continued to blame the system, despite being found guilty of years of embezzlement. She was convicted last week of siphoning off EU funds to pay her party. Well, centre and left-wing groups have held counter-protests in support of the rule of law and also in support of judges who've been subjected to death threats. Since the decision, they now require police protection. Finally, the warm and dry weather is expected to continue across the country for the whole of next week after we enjoyed the hottest day of the year so far on Friday. And if you've been out and about, I challenge you to have done something more relaxing than this. This is from the Republic of Ireland, a flotilla of vintage barges, some of them over 100 years old, making their way from Vickerstown in County Laois to Waterford via Athy in County Kildare. It's organised by the Heritage Boats Association and takes place every 4 years. That's it for the moment. I'll be back with more at 8 o'clock.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello, welcome to Free Speech Nation with me, Josh Howie. This is a show where we cast our gaze across culture, current affairs and politics and do our best to make sense of where the world has become senseless. Coming up on the show tonight, there have been fresh calls this week for the release of Lucy Connelly, who was jailed for her comments after the Southport murders. A fresh trans row has engulfed US sport this week, this time after a female fencer refused to compete against a trans opponent. And Sir Sadiq Khan's Eid message has been labelled an outright disgrace. And of course, myself and my fantastic panel will be answering questions from our wonderful studio audience. My comedian guests this evening are Steve N. Allen and Cresta Wetton. Steve, you're well.
Doing all right. Well, I mean, a little bit of hay fever, but I refuse to admit that it's hay fever because that's a weakness. I am simply allergic to pollen.
Very...
Not sure what the difference
Fine
is.
line.
Fine line.
Yeah, not weak like those hay fever types. I just can't handle pollen.
Are you allergic to people who have got hay fever?
Yes, not hay fever myself, just allergic to Steve.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
How are you?
okay.
You all right?
I'm great. We've got dogs in the studio. I'm delighted this
Are
evening.
you wearing that dress as a sort of passive-aggressive thing for Steve?
Yes, thank you for noticing.
Doesn't bother me at all.
We're going to get some questions from our audience. Our first question's from Steve. Hey, Steve.
Hi, you all right, mate?
Yeah.
Is it worse to be called the N-word rather than transgender or be transphobic?
Yes, so misgendering somebody or, be called the N-word. So, yeah, this is senior nurse Jennifer Mele was suspended from St Helier Hospital after referring to a transgender paedophile patient as Mr. during a medical discussion, despite the patient racially abusing her and threatening violence following her suspension, which came after speaking to the media about her ordeal. Ms Mele is pursuing legal action against the NHS Trust for harassment, discrimination and human rights breaches. So, Steve, we had Ms Mele on a few weeks ago. Her story was very affecting. It was kind of unbelievable, maybe one of the most unbelievable stories that we've had on this show over the years. And now she's been suspended.
Yeah. I mean, to answer the question, which is worse, we can find out because...
We're
on a TV. I'll misgender someone, you use the N-word, and let's see who Ofcom calls. Let's see who's back next week. So
you would think that racially abusing somebody would be worse, and it was actually that she used when she referred to her patient, who happened to also be a paedophile criminal, she misgendered him in a phone call to the doctor because it was something to do with a catheter, where she had to identify over the phone that this was a male that she was dealing with.
It feels like if they would have brought all the other accoutrements that it could have been for a woman, that at some point the conversation would have been like, actually, yeah, you call me sir and give me that smaller one. That makes a lot of sense.
I mean, what do you think about this, sir?
Well, every week we think this can't go on, all this madness. When is Free Speech Nation going to come to an end? And then you get a story like this. I mean, if you told me, I don't know, 2 years ago that this was even possible, that there was anything worse than using the N-word, I wouldn't have been able to think of it. And I certainly wouldn't have thought that it was calling a biological male Mr. that would get you in this much trouble.
But not even to their face, on a phone call round the corner and being overheard. I mean, that surely makes it less, doesn't it? This is the problem in pronouns in general, are third-person things, aren't they? Like, you don't call someone their pronoun to their face. But you're off elsewhere going like her. You don't, it's me and you are the pronouns in first.
As far as I know, there haven't been any investigations into what happened to her, into the racial abuse that she received. I don't believe the NHS have inquired about it, how that happened, also to kind of see how she is feeling because of that.
I wonder whether this is something that happens to people in the NHS quite a lot, whether there's an assumption that you're dealing with, the public, who can be difficult, and that you're supposed to sort of hold yourself to a higher standard or something like that, because it seems totally unreasonable.
No, but I'm sure it does happen, and I'm sure that when it does happen, hopefully you would hope that the NHS would protect its patients, as opposed to in this situation where it's actually suspended her.
Although in the story, she did say she'd never been called that word through her entire life, and then 3 times by the same person. So you imagine it must have been like, well, I think we know how this is going to turn. Imagine going in to see the manager. She must have thought, I know how this conversation's going to go. And then to be suspended. What a 180.
Yeah, well, look, a spokesman, woman maybe, I don't know, for Epsom and St Helier University Hospital's NHS Trust said, we expect all members of staff to follow professional standards. This includes maintaining confidentiality for any patients in their care at all times. Our next question is from Sean.
Well, it's kind of a fairly vague one, but it's to do with child poverty and the DEI. It's a case of government spending money on various things and not doing what they should be doing. So it's a case of, is child poverty going to be something they're going to have to tackle, or how are they going about it? In this case, probably not that well, but anyway. Yeah,
so exactly. So, yeah, you've got DEI, you've got poverty. Quangos in Britain have spent over £26 million on equality, diversity and inclusion roles since 2021, with the number of diversity jobs rising by 20%, despite government efforts to curb such spending. Critics argue these positions waste taxpayer money, while Labour has softened previous attempts to limit their growth. So, ending racism, that's a good thing.
Oh, you've changed your tune now.
We can all agree on that. Whether these roles actually do that is another question. And it's been estimated, I think, £500 million in total these jobs have cost us.
Yeah.
To think how that could have paid for old people, heating, children, free school meals.
That could have paid for a couple of Gary Linekers, couldn't it? So that's the kind of amount of money we're talking. This is big money. So not only, you're right to pose the question, would there have been a link between solving these problems and these jobs? But even if you believe in this theory, if you think it is such a core issue, why do you need someone separate, in a separate department to look at it? If it's a core issue, the managers of whatever business you're in should be dealing with the DEI requirements that you think you've got, instead of having, let's have an office, so we've got an office we can point to say, look what we're doing, aren't we great?
That's interesting, isn't it? Yeah. Is this what bosses are doing? It's like, oh, we've got a DEI person, just talk to them about all of this stuff because we don't want to get involved.
I think, Steve, I'd like to know what they're up to. You've got some teenage kids. Can you send one in for work experience so we can all find out what actually goes on in these offices?
They won't get hired.
Oh, no, of course they won't. They won't get hired. Oh.
Wow. Guys, come on. It's not that bad being Jewish out there. OK, let's go to our next question then. It's from Mike.
Hi.
Hey.
Are Jews devils?
Mike! I told you! I'm at work! Not now. And, Mike, I like your tan, by the way, showing everybody that you've got a garden. Humble brag there. So, yes, this is journalist Ahmed Alaga, a contributor to BBC Arabic, reportedly described Jews as devils and shared social media posts calling Israelis worse than beasts and the embodiment of filth. Although the BBC stated that Alaga's views were not expressed on their platform, the broadcaster faced criticism over his controversial posts, which were deleted after the Telegraph's inquiry. So, Mike, we've seen this before. We've seen the BBC employing people who are definitely racist, also featuring people, in this case at BBC Arabic, and going, oh, we're going to go now to our journalist in Gaza, and then it turns out the person's also a massive racist. They're not going to be giving impartial news, are they?
It just seems like another anti-Semitic, politically biased BBC story, which we seem to be getting over and over again.
Yeah, no, it's another person. I just think that corporations and news broadcasters make mistakes, and when you work here, you're researching a story and someone says, oh, let's get this guest on, and maybe there hasn't been the due diligence to find out their background that much. These things happen, but it happens a lot with the BBC.
Well, yeah, we have heard about this quite a lot, haven't we, in the past year or so. I mean, I don't know whether you're saying this is sloppy or whether it's deliberate. It is getting a bit embarrassing, isn't it? I think the BBC, they're under this difficult thing. They have to say that they're impartial, and that's very difficult.
Well, it's the balance, I should say. Think of how many people the BBC have employed who haven't tweeted that Jews are devils. So, you know, they represent both sides.
And they're supposed to have fact-checkers, aren't they? And they've got a lot of resources, which we all know because we pay for it.
Yeah. BBC Verify, not fit for purpose. What do you think about the fact that we, though, have to pay for this? That seems to be what the other part of the argument is.
I think the argument against the licence fee doesn't have to include they're saying things that we disagree with. It's not a system that should be working. In the modern-day world, where you can get TV sent into the front of your fridge and the internet is changing things. The licence fee funding model is flawed and it's regressive. If you're poor, you pay the same as rich people. That's the reason we should get rid of it. And yet the arguments on the newspapers are all like, they said a thing I disagree with. Why do I have to pay for this? Well, no, that for me it's separate. It should be easily won as an argument just going, it's a bad system.
I mean, and you don't disagree with the whole Jews are devils thing anyway, so...
I regularly tweet it, and yet they've not employed me trying to get a gig there.
A BBC spokesperson said international journalists, including the BBC, are not allowed access into Gaza, so we hear from a range of contributors in the region. Ahmed Alaga was a contributor. He is not a BBC member of staff or part of the BBC's reporting team. In this instance, we were unaware of the contributor's social media activity prior to hearing from him. His views were not expressed on a BBC platform. His posts do not reflect the BBC's view, and we are absolutely clear that there is no place for anti-Semitism on our services. Our final question for the moment is from Tracy.
Is it white privilege for children to be read to by their parents?
Yes, is it white privilege being read to by your parents? Yeah, this is Westminster City Council. They're requiring staff to take a privilege walk test where they gain or lose points based on factors such as whether their parents read to them to address unconscious bias. The council is also prioritising global majority candidates for senior roles, sparking concerns over racial discrimination in hiring practices. Tracy, have you heard about this story at all?
can't admit that I have, no.
Well, I see that you have a dog here. Is this a dog that helps with seeing?
He's my guide dog.
He's your guide dog?
Yes.
So what's interesting in this Westminster Council is that they're not actually addressing disability at all. When they're doing Q&As, disability isn't somehow included here, which is one of the things that we've, of course, seen, that the sort of negation of other people's experiences and the impact that that would have on their job.
It often seems to be the case, to be honest, yeah. Disabled people are still, to some degree, regarded as they were maybe 200 years ago, should be behind locked doors.
Yeah.
And it, you know, that's just wrong. I mean, there's 2 guide dogs in Parliament.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's not representative.
You do have a golden Labrador. If you'd have gone for a chocolate lab, you would have got a better score on that test. That's the truth.
Is this? Did you take the test? You
No,
saw
of course
the
I
test?
don't. Well, actually, do you know what? I thought I don't want to do that because it might be an embarrassing result. But the more I've heard about it, my parents didn't read to me when I was a kid. I could be winning this thing. I didn't realise, you know, state school educated, northern poor upbringing.
But you're a white male. That gives you plus 15 points of privilege.
It's gonna hurt, isn't it? That one. Although there is a thing in there, you get to lower your points. The goal is to try and get the lowest point, isn't it? And you can reduce points. No, you got to go knowing
But
it.
you've nailed it.
If you start it and you just think like I'm going for a high score and come out as like the biggest white privileged person ever, you'll never get employed anywhere else. But one of the things is you can lower your score if you see your demographic badly represented in media. And I recently watched Adolescence. So as a white guy, I score some points.
Minus 15. And Cresta, I don't know what being a female, how that refers, but I know that living on a boat, or previously living on a boat, is like minus 100 points.
You're never going to see me as anyone that didn't live on a boat, are you?
That's encapsulates your identity.
You're a
yeah,
mer
no,
person.
it didn't.
Yeah.
I'm a what?
A mer person.
I'm a mer person.
So
Not anymore. I'm post-mer. Yeah, I mean, it's very broad brush, isn't it? Exactly as you said, it doesn't include things like disability. I think there was something about having a sports car in there.
Yeah. So it should be, say, shopping at Waitrose, that was having privilege.
Yeah, I don't do that either.
Yeah. It should also be pointed out that 8% of Westminster's residents are black, 20% of council people employed by the council are black. So in terms of representation, that seems to be, maybe they need to...
What you're saying is they need to increase the number of black people in the population. Yeah.
That is exactly, that's exactly it. So a Westminster Council spokesperson said Westminster City Council's recruitment policies are industry standard, entirely consistent with UK employment law, and have been in place for a number of years. In keeping with many public sector and private companies, we are committed to ensuring all candidates can compete for a range of roles and actively promote ourselves as an inclusive employer. This PowerPoint presentation, which we believe was available on the council staff's intranet from 2021, does not form any part of formal policy training or recruitment process. So, next on Free Speech Nation, there have been fresh calls this week for the release of Lucy Connelly, who was jailed for her comments after the Southport murders, including from a former Prime Minister. Find out more after the break.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as
and now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. Senior Conservatives, including former Prime Minister Liz Truss, has called for the release of Lucy Connelly, a mother jailed for 31 months after posting controversial comments on social media about the Southport murders. Despite apologising and deleting her posts, Connelly remains in prison while others convicted of violent crimes are released, with critics accusing the justice system of a two-tier approach. We're now joined by barrister and writer Stephen Barrett. Stephen, welcome to the show. Thank you very much. Thank you. It's all come out really because Alison Piston wrote an interview with the husband this week and with Lucy. And I think when people first heard the tweet or the post on X that was put out, people were rightly concerned. It's not a nice post. It's not like there's ambivalence about the content of the actual post itself. It's calling for violence towards immigrants. But she deleted it, and being in jail for 31 months, that's the excessiveness.
Yes, that's the thing that riles. I mean, I've said to you before, and I say it on the telly a lot, the Sentencing Council is completely out of touch with ordinary people. Most of us would like paedophiles, in particular, to go to prison. That's where we think that they ought to go. And the fact that they don't go to prison when they're arrested with goodness knows how many of these awful images, that is shocking to us. Thanks to the work of Robert Jenrick, we've now seen that the Sentencing Council is what... I mean, it was always going to be like this. The minute you create distant bodies that are not accountable to the demos, to the people, they're always going to stew in their own little ideologies. They're always going to get a little bit of a high opinion of themselves. It's perfectly normal that humans do that. One of the things that I love about being an anti-racist is that we're all the same. We're all corruptible. We've all got exactly the same awful qualities, as well as the potential for the good ones. So the Sentencing Council was always going to go off the boil. It's clearly gone off the boil on paedophilia. And if the Sentencing Council reached the view that this is the appropriate sentence for a young mother who's never had a previous conviction, then I think, again, it's confused. What I'd like to talk about specifically is this idea of getting rid of the rule of law and the rule of lawyers and the rule of petty rules. You know, we all make mistakes in life. We all have typos. One of the things that I learned as a young lawyer in training is that if you follow the rules, Robin Hood goes to prison. OK? Now, none of us want Robin Hood in prison. Nobody wants that to be the conclusion to Robin Hood. That is not how that film should end. And all of us know that in our heart of hearts. And this is a young woman. She's got absolutely no previous convictions. She worked as a nursery worker looking after young children from mixed backgrounds themselves. So she's not a racist. And she didn't... I mean, the tweet itself is ambiguous. I would have fought it. And I do... I'm not a criminal lawyer, so my voice on that is not that strong. But if my criminal colleagues, you know, want to weigh in, I would ask them to fight... I would ask them whether that couldn't have been fought.
Well, look, to be clear, she did commit a crime, but as she says in this interview, she talks about her thought process at the time, and she believed that to admit her guilt would be to bring a lesser sentence, to make... She realised that she'd done wrong. She realised before the police were involved. She went for a walk.
She deleted it.
Deleted it after a couple of hours. And she just wanted her life to return to normality as quickly as possible. The question becomes here not just about the excessiveness of the actual sentence itself, but, of course, why the sentence is so excessive. Because, of course, this was after the riots. There is no evidence that her tweet or post led to any actual violence at all.
No.
And whether this is all just sort of a political decision, really, to shut down what was going on at the time.
Yes, and it pushes to the edge this idea that everything will be perfect if we make power independent. But I'm afraid this experiment in making power independent has just made power unaccountable, and it's now doing odd things that we don't want it to do. Many of us have suspicions about quite how this came to pass. The answer isn't to maintain this facade of independence. The answer is to shatter it, to make the ministers directly responsible, because I think there is a room in our society for mercy. So even if people who do things which are technically wrong, we can forgive them. I think there's a space for forgiveness. I think it makes a society much less brittle and much more cohesive. And if we look at ourselves, and these are not questions for experts, these are not intellectual ideas. Do we want to be a nation where this lady stays in prison, or do we want her out of prison because, frankly, we don't think that she's a threat to anybody? You know, and what's happening in the prison is particularly egregious. It's particularly bad. A prison officer has said that she can't have... Her daughter is having an unfortunate reaction to her going to prison. Now, I'm sure children of all sorts of mums who go to prison have unfortunate reactions. There is a system to allow you out for day release so that you can sort of at least see a bit more of your child in a bit more of a normal way. And she's being denied that because she's been told that she's upset a lot of people. Again, is this the nation that we want to be? And I want to return us to this idea. Once you smash the idea that power should be independent, power returns to all of us. And then the question is, what do we think we should be? How do we want to be as a society? And I've already said, and again, this is not an expert opinion as a lawyer, as a human being, I would like the paedophiles in prison. And very, very personally, again, you don't have to listen to me because this is not expertise, it's a personal opinion, I would quite like Lucy out. No, I think it's about time for it. I think that we're becoming machine people with machine hearts and machine minds. I think 100 years ago we were warned about that by Charlie Chaplin. I think we saw what the horrors of the 20th century produced because everything became automated, it became inhuman. We're in danger of losing that again. And I think I would say to the Prime Minister in particular, you know, political careers are never as long as you think they're going to be. And they're always finite. Terribly sorry, it doesn't matter what party you are, they are always finite. But then you have to look for a legacy. And when his career has ended, as it will, does he not want to look back on releasing Lucy Connelly as his thing I was proud to do in office? And what I want to reassure you all is he can do that. Now, he can't do it like a king. We're not a presidential system, so he can't just be Trump. But he has to use his... he can use his MPs in Parliament to do it, because he has a majority in Parliament. That's where his real power comes from. And Parliament can do this. Parliament can pardon her. Parliament could, at the very least, just release her. Parliament could, you know, even at a lesser level, just put her on a tag and get her out. And these decisions being made by governors who none of us will know and we can't see, stop it all. Make these decisions made by ministers who we can hold to account. They can come on your programme, they can come on the media. We can know, at least we know who Shabana Mahmood is. The chance of us knowing who every prison governor in the country is slim to nil. So let's return power to us. And I think I would call on the Prime Minister to release Lucy and use his powers to do so. And I think, regardless of how we vote, we'd all think better of him.
I would say that what Keir Starmer would argue was, and the reason that the decision-making that went into this is he would have argued at the time, I imagine, the greater good to shut down any potential violence. I'm sure that's potentially how he sees it. My issue, or I would say other people's issue, is the law being sort of mismanaged here in terms of the sentencing, where you do have this two-tier situation going on, where there's not consistency. That seems to be the issue that I think a lot of people have, because where you see there's some terror suspects were arrested this week, potentially belonging to
an imam, who said some quite outrageous things.
But when you have terror suspects being allowed bail, yet Lucy isn't or wasn't, when you have people driving around the streets in North London calling for the rape of Jewish women and mothers and nothing happening to them, it's the inconsistency I think is the problem.
It is, and it's core to our cultural values. It's very much what this island is. And one of the things, because people talked about Englishness recently, and I think in a very simplistic way. I actually think that if in your blood you get really angry at the inconsistent application of rules, then that's what makes you English. That's an English thing. And there's a poem by Kipling where the Norman lord advises his son how to run the Saxons. And he says, look, if they ever start talking about fairness, back down, give in, because some things are not right. And if we all feel this in our blood, then we are all English, because that's what we do. And this feels wrong. There is an inherent wrongness now. 31 months is an awfully long time for somebody who's not a professional criminal to spend in a prison setting. She has been punished. No, you can't deny that. She's done her time. I really would urge the Prime Minister to at least get behind the national mood. I'm publicly criticise him often for lacking emotion. I know that I've talked to the people of Southport. One of the victims' granddads heckled him. He's called 19 seconds because they timed him, and that's how long he took to play Plastic Flowers, and then he went back to a party with Z-list celebrities. This is a redemptive moment for the Prime Minister. If he does this, even I'll be proud of him. This is. I think it's his time. Can he demonstrate some humanity? I don't think we want this woman languishing in prison. That's not an expert opinion. That's not because I'm a lawyer. It's because I'm a human being. And I hope you all agree with me.
I think our audience will agree with you, and I agree with you. Of course, I think she should be let out. As you say, she committed a crime. She has been punished. I think there will be people out there who Keir Starmer would be afraid of people saying, oh, no, he's letting a racist out of jail and she's getting away with it. That seems to be that fear, and he needs to overcome that, whether he will. It's interesting that you talk about fairness, because, yes, when people define Britishness, Englishness, Britishness, fairness, queuing, I would always say, and fairness. Now, we might have different ideas about what constitutes being fair within where we lie on the political spectrum, but I think anybody looking into the story can see a mother separated from her child, a mother who's been through incredible trauma in her past, who is partly seemingly reacting to that trauma, and it's the lack of fairness, and it's unfair.
And let's be absolutely... I mean, I had a reaction to it. I'm sure everybody did. It was absolutely horrific. Those poor little girls. Those absolutely poor little girls. The monster in this is the guy who did it, not Lucy. And, if our establishment got a little bit too excited and started to worry that there were going to be riots every day or some sort of revolution, and if our establishment, maybe came down a bit too hard, it's OK to admit mistakes. It's OK to say, do you know what? She doesn't belong in there. And I do think it's time to get her out. I mean, I know that she suffered, from the Alison Pearson piece, that she suffered PTSD because she lost an 18-month-old boy. I mean, I hope nobody here has experienced child loss. I've experienced miscarriage. I'm not going to make eye contact because these things are just awful. I'm sure she had an awful reaction. She went upstairs and she was looking after children that day, and she locked them all in the bathroom with her. And when her husband got home, they were all locked together in the bathroom just to keep them safe. I mean, the other thing about the Axel Rudiger Barnett incident is that because of all of this covering it up, because of all of this image control and damage control and the bollard not wanting to admit he's actually not very good with human feelings, we're missing out on the heroes. There are two other heroes. The lovely lady who ran the dance class who got stabbed defending the girls. Way more should be done about her. She should be given a damehood. That's what a dame is. That's what a hero is. And the gentleman whose office was across from them, who got stabbed in the leg because he tried to protect kids. The people who throw themselves, and all of our kids, they're so precious and so important. The people who defend them are the people that we should honour, and we should not put people like Lucy Connelly into prison. And now I've talked to Alison, and actually, the circumstances aren't too bad. It's not like she's suffering and they're not attacking her. Even the prisoners are being nice to her because they realise she's a decent person. But I think it's time for the Prime Minister to show his decency. And I think I will urge him to let her free.
Absolutely. Well, there we go. Thank you, Barrister writer Stephen Barrett. Incredibly passionate. Next on Free Speech Nation, a year and a half after MSP Murdo Fraser was at the centre of a non-crime hate incident investigation, a review has found Police Scotland acted unreasonably. I'll be speaking to a member of Free Speech Union after the break. See you in a second. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. It's much drier across Spain and Portugal as we head into the new working week. There'll be plenty of sunny spells across much of the Med, but the risk of some showers at times too. Madeira's seeing some showers, but plenty of sunny spells too. Much of the dry weather across Spain and Portugal, though 1 or 2 showers are possible. Showers become more frequent from Italy, stretching across to Greece and Turkey. Temperatures a little on the disappointing side for the time of year, and it remains so for the next few days too.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is GB News, the People's Channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Now, I'm a bit irritated today. So there's 2 secret files that have been released, one on Prince Harry and his visa claim and getting citizenship in the USA. And what do we learn from it? Nothing. Nothing, because it's all redacted. And then the biggest one of all, history. So Donald Trump says, yes, we can see the JFK files, we have nothing to hide there, whatever. It's all redacted. There's nothing, we don't learn anything new from this. Now, you've studied, you've been like me, you've been fascinated like this since you were a kid.
Yeah, I have. I don't... I mean, let's be honest. Is there likely to be files somewhere that's actually saying Grassy Knoll and Magic Bullet...
Giving you the truth.
And that it was the mafia and that it was to do with J. Edgar Hoover or anything else? I don't believe all that stuff anyway. I honestly don't.
Well, how do you explain that it wasn't JFK's brain that was in the post-mortem? It was a different brain. His brain was substituted.
You know what? That's the first I've heard of that.
Well, you see, I thought
it was a different brain. How did they know? How do they know it wasn't his brain?
Well, they may have known what his brain was like
doctor in Dallas who was there to do the post-mortem because it was his area.
Yes.
Wasn't allowed to do the post-mortem.
That's right, because they wanted to fly him back to Washington, right?
The CIA or the FBI, whatever, took the body away.
Right.
And they had time to do whatever they wanted, and doctor anything the way they wanted. But, I mean, and there definitely were 2 shooters. There were 2 shooters involved in this.
I don't believe that.
Because of the magic bullet?
No, the puff of smoke from the grassy knoll.
Maybe I'm being extremely naive, that's all, but for everything that I've seen, everything I've read, I think that Lee Harvey Oswald, how about this, actually did it.
What?
And did it alone.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. A review has found that Police Scotland acted unreasonably when it investigated a non-crime hate incident against Conservative MSMP Murdo Fraser. Police Investigations and Review Commissioner found that the force dismissed Mr Fraser's complaint without properly engaging with the law or evidence. The probe centred around a social media post by Mr Fraser in November 2023 criticising the Scottish Government's non-binary equality action plan. A member of the public reported the post, and although officers determined no crime had been committed, it was still recorded as a hate incident without informing Mr Fraser. Joining me now in the studio is Education and Events Director at the Free Speech Union, Jan McVarish. Jan, welcome.
Thanks, Josh.
So, this case is quite interesting because I know the Free Speech Union has helped him out in terms of fighting this, because I think it's three... I've read the sort of very detailed report, but it seems like there have been 3 failures from the police, and all of them were basically found to be true.
Yes, and this is it's really important, this, because obviously Murdo Fraser is a public figure as an MSP and somebody who has got some resources to gain recourse and to expose what's going on here. And with our support, he's on our Scottish Advisory Council, which has been really important as well. But what it was that Murdo Fraser discovered that there was an NCHI, a non-crime hate incident, recorded against his name. And he found that out almost by accident. The police didn't inform him. But when he found out that there was one, he then challenged the police to remove it. And they refused. And after that, and then he launched a complaint against them. And what this latest finding, this latest report by the PIRC, the Police Investigation and Review Commission, as you said, what they've found is that the police then failed to look into Murdo Fraser's
3
complaint.
points that he made. Isn't it incredible that there could be this record held against us by the police that you don't even know exists? It was only by luck, really, or not luck, but that he actually found out of its existence.
Yes, and he only found out, I think, because the same complainant had reported him to another ethics council to do with being an MP. So that's when this non-crime hate incident came to light. So I just read you what he actually said in his tweet.
Please.
So bearing in mind that he's an elected representative and he was challenging policy. He said, choosing to identify as non-binary is as valid as choosing to identify as a cat. I'm not sure government should be spending time on action plans for either. So he's not having a go at anybody.
Specific individuals.
He's challenging policy, which is a completely...
And an ideology.
Yes, and it's a completely legitimate thing for a public figure to do. So that's why we got involved in supporting him from very early on. And so hopefully this re-investigation by the police into its own lack of ability to take up his complaint, maybe finally he'll get some redress.
They said that there was no data recorded, and then this report found out actually it was recorded in 2 different places that people were able to access.
That's right.
Then there was this idea that there was no common sense discretion, i.e. in terms of what they're actually... Someone complained, but that doesn't mean that actually an offence has been committed.
Yes, that's right. So I think the threefold is, as you say, that his personal data was recorded, and he's saying it shouldn't have been recorded. Yeah. Secondly, that the law was not interpreted correctly and it was misapplied. And then thirdly, that it was inconsistently applied. So he pointed out that similar complaints had been made, or numerous complaints had been made against the First Minister of Scotland, Hamza Yousaf, about his notorious speech where he called out the kind of whiteness of Scottish institutions. And numerous reports were made against him for that speech when the hate crime legislation came in. And then also J.K. Rowling, when the hate crime legislation came into action in Scotland, said, come on then, take me on, prove, lodge a hate crime against me, I dare you. And the Police Scotland did neither, didn't actually pursue complaints against either of those. But they did pursue a complaint and investigated against Murdo Fraser. So he was saying that's very inconsistent.
And then talking about police south of the border, Maxie Allen, who we had on the show last week, he was the father who made some comments in a parent WhatsApp group and had 6 police officers turn up. Him and his wife had been interned in jail for 8 hours because of it, and then the charges later dropped. It turns out that a local politician who had spoken on their, or emailed on their behalf, was then also approached by the police to say, stop doing this, otherwise you could be a suspect in this harassment investigation.
Yes, that's right. And that local councillor was also told that they needed to warn anybody else that they'd included in the email chain, which included the MP, the local MP. So this is police interference in the democratic processes. And it goes all the way back down to the level of the school, because the parents were actually raising issues with the governing body. It wasn't to do with their own child. It was to do with the way the governing body was selecting a new head teacher. Now, that is a completely legitimate public issue for people to get involved in at local level. And so this is an undermining of democratic process, I think, by the police. And I don't know why they've lost their way, but they seem to have.
Well, and this, I guess, leads nicely to, I know the Free Speech Union, you run a lot of events. I have been to them, found them very informative. You've got one coming up in Belfast?
Belfast, yes. So on this Friday, we're going to Belfast. We'll be in the National Museum of Ulster, which is a really fantastic building in the Botanical Gardens in Belfast on Friday evening. So do go to our website, freespeechunion.org, go to the events page and you'll get the details of that and you can get tickets. And speaking at that is Harry Miller, who's the kind of original gangster of non-crime hate incidents, investigations and challenges. So he's the person who had a police person visit him and said they needed to check his thinking, and he then took this all the way through to the higher courts to challenge that process, which has been very, very important.
He's an incredibly passionate speaker. I just have to read out, a Police Scotland spokesman said, following recent receipt of the complaint handling review from the Police Investigations and Review Commissioner, we will consider the recommendations and a full update will be provided to the complainer in due course. So, thank you so much for coming, Jan, and good luck with the event next week.
Thanks, Josh. Thank you.
Next on Free Speech Nation, a fresh trans row has engulfed US sport this week, this time after a female fencer refused to compete against a trans opponent. Find out more after the break.
Good afternoon and welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Well, we have high pressure in charge. This will lead to some chilly starts but dry with plenty of sunshine and lighter winds. So taking a look at the bigger picture then, this is the area of high pressure situated out towards the northeast. Still a bit of a squeeze in the ice bar, especially across eastern areas, to give a bit of a chillier feel here. But otherwise, through the rest of today, plenty of late evening sunshine and then staying dry and clear as we go through this evening and into the start of Monday morning. We do have some cloud though just across parts of Shetland, but for many of us, with the winds easing, temperatures will quickly fall away. Mist and fog patches for some of us and a touch of frost. Rural places may dip down to -3 or even -5 degrees to start Monday morning. So a chilly start out there for many of us. There will still be some cloud lingering across parts of Shetland, but for Scotland, plenty of sunshine to start Monday morning. Likewise for Northern Ireland, any mist and fog patches will soon lift and clear. And that's a similar picture for the rest of England and Wales. Plenty of sunshine to start Monday. And that theme continues throughout the rest of Monday. Plenty of dry, fine and settled weather around. The winds also easing, so lighter winds, but still a little bit chilly across some eastern coasts. Otherwise, still staying cloudy across parts of Shetland, but for many of us, still feeling pleasant in that sunshine, especially out towards the west. We could see highs of 16 or 17 degrees, but any windward coast still feeling a little bit chilly. And as we go through Monday evening and into Tuesday, well, not much changes. We hold on to the light winds. That will allow mist and fog to develop once again. But then as we go through the week, we hold on to high pressure, plenty of sunshine, perhaps a bit cloudier on Wednesday for some of us, and then temperatures rising. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
isn't it?
no,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. A female fencer refused to compete against a trans opponent, leading to her disqualification at a tournament this week. Let's have a little look. USA Fencing have justified its decision by stating that Stephanie Turner, who was the person in the clip there, was disqualified solely for refusing to compete against an eligible opponent as required by international fencing rules. The organisation emphasised its commitment to inclusivity, adherence to established policies and the importance of respectful dialogue on transgender participation in sports. I'm now joined by the journalist Joe Bartosz to talk about this incident. Hello, Joe. Welcome here. Big round of applause, Joe. No, you had a nightmare, you're driving, you're here, you made it. Thank you so much for coming here. You wrote about this incident this week. I think a lot of people have seen that clip, and it's incredible that this is still going on.
It is. I mean, it sort of defies common sense, it defies logic, and the fact that they've sold this policy as being about inclusivity, whereas clearly women are being excluded and having to withdraw from competitions, and also in the US it impacts on scholarships. So, you know, so actually it's a much bigger issue even than just sport.
And it's health and safety as well, because I understand the type of fencing that this entails. A sabre, it's a larger weapon. To be hit by a male, I imagine, would be different from a woman. I'll pay someone later to find out for myself. But there are those implications as well. And as you say, and I think this is, of course, what we've seen across this whole movement, gender ideology, is that what's done in the name of inclusion, of course, actually means exclusion.
Yes, I think she was incredibly brave to take the action that she did, and I think it's, you know, it's one of those images that's quite iconic, her sort of taking the knee and refusing to participate, and that will have an impact on her career, on her, you know, of course it will, as the policy, so it was changed in 2023, but actually Redux did quite a good, the magazine did quite a good in-depth dive into this, and it's been going on for about a decade. And there were some sort of key players who are trans activists who have put themselves on the board of USA Fencing, and that's why this issue has become so quickly ingrained.
Yeah, well, so my understanding is that to be able to compete as a female, you just have to have identified supposedly for a year. No one actually checks on it, so it's basically essentially self-ID. And then there's also the USFA director, there's this deleted manifesto, but what he wrote was, and this is incredible, giving athletes a sense of belonging and a will to live is more powerful than medals and competitive glory.
Yeah.
So essentially, it's sort of guilt-tripping that, oh, women, you shouldn't win any awards anymore because we're trying to save lives here, which, of course, is statistics that have been debunked anyway. And it should also be pointed out that the trans athlete was, I think, 29th as a male.
Yes.
And then went on to start getting medals as a female, which is what we saw, of course, with Leah Thomas as well.
Yeah, and interesting, he also competed in shot putting, in women's shot putting at a high school level. So, you know, I mean, it just shows they're obviously gaming the system. I know that the person you just mentioned who gave that statement, he was asked directly, do you care about the impact on women? And his answer was, no, I don't care. So, you know, these people know what they're doing.
This is it. Well, and it's just to see the ideology, and they said they're committed to amending policy as more relevant, evidence-based research emerges. So the idea that there's not, up to this point, been any evidence that men are stronger than women, and they're just now waiting for someone to release some scientific paper is totally ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we've got sort of a billion years of being a sexually dimorphic species. You know, sexual dimorphism is pretty universal. It's pretty ancient. It's pretty obvious. Of course, men and women are different, and of course, men are stronger. And you know, the reason women's sporting categories exist is to give us a chance. So yeah, this is absolutely disgraceful. And as I say, in the US, it has ramifications far beyond sport. It also impacts on women's education because it's a way to get into Ivy League universities in the States. It's to get a fencing scholarship.
Yeah, and do you think this is going to inspire other women? As we saw with the women's swimming team, now we're seeing it here. Is this hopefully something that will spread? Because really, if all women just said, you know what, I'm not going to compete, then it would be over. I know it's a hard thing because for someone to give up their passion, which is what people would have to do to make this happen. So I'm not trying to say that I'm not trying to sort of victim blame here, but hopefully this might inspire more action.
I mean, I really hope it does, but at the same time, I wouldn't criticise any woman for not wanting to give up her spot on a team or her career. It's the policies that need to change and the sporting bodies that need to change those policies rather than the women having to take action.
All right, well, thank you so much, Joe Bartosz there. That's the end of the first hour of Free Speech Nation, but don't go away because there's lots more to come between now and 9 o'clock. See you in a second.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening and welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Well, we have high pressure dominating through the rest of today and into next week, bringing plenty of dry and sunny days, but some chilly nights. Taking a look at the bigger picture then, we've got high pressure situated towards the northeast, still a bit of a squeeze in the isobars, but winds will be easing. So through the rest of this evening and overnight, for many of us, we hold on to plenty of clear skies. This will allow temperatures to quickly fall away. We'll see some mist and fog patches in places, especially across Northern Ireland and parts of Scotland. The far north of Scotland holding on to cloudier skies across Orkney and Shetland, but lows reaching down to -3 or possibly -5 in places. So it's going to be a chilly start out there, especially across parts of Scotland with a touch of frost. Cloudy across northern parts, so across Orkney and Shetland. Across Northern Ireland, bright, but we will see some mist and fog patches first thing. They'll gradually lift and clear. And then for much of England and Wales, plenty of sunshine to start Monday morning. And we hold on to that theme throughout much of Monday as well. Many places holding on to dry, sunny skies, still cloudy across Shetland and perhaps into Orkney later. But we'll see lighter winds as well, so they'll be easing, especially along the south coast. Otherwise, still going to be feeling warm in that sunshine, especially out towards the west. We've got highs of up to 16 or 17 degrees and perhaps just feeling a little bit more pleasant down that eastern coast. Through Tuesday, it's a very similar start, so plenty of bright skies out there, but perhaps a little bit chilly first thing. We'll also see some cloud just filtering in further across northern parts of Scotland, perhaps some fair weather cloud across East Anglia. And we'll see a bit more cloud on Wednesday as well for many of us before that clears. Otherwise, plenty of sunshine and turning warmer as we go Thursday and Friday.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be driving away with this brand new Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps 4, comes with Skyroof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For a chance to win a motorhome and cash, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation.
No,
because the failure is
deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
There is plenty more still to come on Free Speech Nation this week, including Sir Sadiq Khan's controversial Eid message. But first, let's get a news update with Aaron Armstrong.
Thanks, Josh. A very good evening to you. Our top stories. The Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch is facing criticism for saying she's not surprised by Israel's decision to deport 2 Labour MPs. Abdissam Mohammed, who represents Sheffield Central, and the MP for Airlie and Woodley, Yuan Yang, were deported after being accused of planning to spread anti-Israel hatred. Well, Ms Badenoch has said Israel has a right to control its borders, adding she thinks it's shocking Labour has MPs that other countries don't want to allow in. The Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, says her comments are disgraceful. The Lib Dem leader, Ed Davey, says she's shown unbelievably poor judgment. Well, Lammy has also described Israel's decision as unacceptable. In a joint statement, Ms Yang and Ms Mohammed have said they were astounded at the unprecedented step taken by Israeli authorities. A father and his 10-year-old daughter have been named as the 2 victims of a fire at a caravan site near Skegness. 48-year-old Lee Baker and his 10-year-old daughter Esme, both from the Nottingham area, died when a fire broke out at Golden Beach Holiday Park in Ingomells in the early hours of Saturday morning. The family say they're utterly devastated. An investigation into the cause of the fire is ongoing. French politician Marine Le Pen has told a rally of her supporters in Paris that her criminal conviction for embezzlement was a political decision rather than a legal one. The leader of the right-wing National Rally has been barred from running for office for 5 years, ruling her out of the presidential elections in 2027, a race she was tipped to win. She was convicted last week of siphoning off EU Parliament funds to pay for her party. Well, centre and left-wing groups have held counter-protests in support of the law being enforced and also in support of the judges in that decision who have been subjected to death threats and now require police protection. Emergency services in Scotland are continuing to battle a wildfire that started in Galloway and has now spread north into East Ayrshire. It began on Friday. People have been told to avoid the area. Meanwhile, the fire service in Northern Ireland has been dealing with a large fire near Ballymoney. Police say the road near the fire in County Antrim is not passable. The public have been told to stay away. Elsewhere in Northern Ireland, a man's been arrested on suspicion of arson after a large fire in County Down led to homes being evacuated over the weekend.
Mad, isn't it?
And after the sunniest March on record for England, the question is, will it hold for the Easter holidays? Well, the good news is the warm weather is expected to last for the next week into next weekend. That's in the UK. The pictures you're looking at are in Ireland. The waterway between County Laois and County Kildare. This is a flotilla of boats organised by the Heritage Association. It takes place every 4 years. Relaxing just to look at it. That's it for the moment. I'll be back with more just after 9 o'clock.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation with me, Josh Howie. Journalist Nicole Lampart will be joining me to dissect Sadiq Khan's Eid message that has sparked controversy, and we'll be taking a look at whether we're approaching the end of woke Hollywood, as well as diving into this week's social sensations. But first, let's get more from our audience. Hello, Anton. First question.
Do you think fines work?
Do I think that fines work? So yes, this is universities are reassessing their transgender equality policies after the University of Sussex faced a £585,000 fine for free speech violations related to the treatment of a former professor who resigned due to harassment over her views on sex and gender. Institutions like the University of Leeds and Essex are also reviewing their policies, including trans inclusion booklets and online LGBTQ+ guidance. So, money works, Steve, fining people.
I mean, the general question, do fines work? Yes, I now drive slower. So personal experience, I know about that. The only time fines don't work is when it's some organisation where they get fined and it just means we pay more. So you fine a water company, I don't give two flips about it, because at some point I'll pay for that fine. Great, you put a poo in the river and now I have to pay for it. But for universities, it seems, yeah, there are other universities already changing their terms and conditions on their website for fear that someone is searching for some term and condition that then means they can get a fine as well. So yeah, money's definitely talking.
I mean, this is what we've talked about for a while now, is how does this gender ideology get uprooted from these institutions? They are captured. And it seems like this is the only way. Suddenly £1 million or £500,000, they're like, oh, actually, yes, we will look at it, and maybe we have been given false advice.
I think you're right. Yes, exactly. It's a huge amount of money, and it's leading to change, isn't it? Good stuff.
There's a joke, a lot of money, but it ends up in small change.
Nice.
It's not my finest work, but I thought I'd put something in.
You know what? We'll take it.
It's a lot of money and a big change, and it means that people at university will be allowed to hear things they don't necessarily like, which is pretty groundbreaking.
Gosh, do you think there might be a generation of people coming out of universities who can sort of critically think?
Possibly, and I think that's worth £500,000. I'm quite happy about this story.
Fair enough. I mean, this was the fine was imposed by the whole point of this having this office for students was so they could have and hear free speech and have free speech themselves. Their job seems to already have kind of worked, really, their purpose of coming into existence.
Yes, fantastic. More of this, please.
All right, fine. Our next question is from Luke.
Hiya. Is accent bias the same as racism?
This is interesting, isn't it? Yeah, is accent bias the same as racism? So this is lecturers at Edinburgh University are the first in the UK to undergo accent bias training to address anti-Scottish bullying, as campaigners highlight the mocking and mimicking of students, especially those from Scottish and working class backgrounds, which discourages their participation in tutorials. Staff are being instructed to treat accent or class-based prejudice with the same seriousness of racist or sexist remarks. Luke, what accent do I hear coming out of your mouth?
It's just a very generic English accent, and I'm quite surprised it's coming from Scotland, because I lived in Scotland for nearly 20 years and they took the out of my accent all the time, so...
Absolutely. Well, this is... Yeah, is it... when I've been to Scotland, when I've got friends who are at Edinburgh University, I think Edinburgh University is unique somewhat in that I think it's like 70% went to public school, something along those lines. And so I think there's this weird reversal, whereas where I went to university, I was very much in the minority, and having a posh accent was something to be ridiculed, and maybe rightly so, I don't know. But it seems like, is it an issue specific to Scotland?
Well, no, I think everywhere. When I went to university, I was from Mansfield, a really thick Mansfield accent, and I had to lose a lot of my accent because no one could understand me. It was just basics. I was saying things and they were just hearing vowels. So I do think there is, but it's not the same as racism because, you know, we are allowed to have things. One can be worse than the other and still something be bad. We can have that nuance in our heads. But also, I mean, I don't think it's the same that you might have been picked on for a posh accent. Oh no! How did you mop up the tears with your money? You know what I mean? It's not quite the same as. There's some prejudice against certain accents.
Cresta, I didn't understand a word that said. Do you, if you could interpret for me, what do you think about this? Because I actually think, when I was reading this article, and I think it was in the Telegraph, of course, that that we don't really talk about in this drive and focus on ethnicity and gender identity and all these other different
to quote Bruce
markers.
Devlin, we're busy girls.
Yeah, but we don't seem to talk about class enough necessarily, because that seems to still have a massive impact in this country, and that seems to be what has been arguably left behind in so many of these discussions and race towards equality that people are taking.
Yes, we don't talk about class. I mean, I wouldn't expect to talk about class as much as racism. I think I agree with Steve. I think two things can be... You look like you're going to challenge that.
I think there might be a bigger impact in this country coming from class prejudice than there is racism. Yes, I can understand why we talk about one more, but I'd expect to hear a lot more about the class prejudice. You sitting around in rooms like this, in the media, you will be surrounded by people who aren't from working class backgrounds, so of course they're not the stories that are on the front pages. They're not going to get covered in the same way, because it'll be people shooting themselves in the foot, because they'll be like, oh yeah, I am middle class, so I shouldn't have this job, let's hand it to a working class person. It's a hidden blight.
It's a good point, but I still find it a lot easier to do Leo's accent than that one I've got from the Caribbean that you don't like when we're messing about backstage.
Yep. I very much enjoy it and think you should do it now, actually. I'll take that.
I don't think I will, Steve. It's a shame, isn't it? Accents used to be really good fun when I was a kid, but it's not as popular anymore.
I can do my Italian accent. If you want, Cressida.
Extraordinary.
Oh dear, that was actually my Chinese accent. So, a University of Edinburgh spokeswoman said, "We know that class-based stereotypes are unacceptably widespread within society, and we have a responsibility to tackle this within our own community. Discrimination of any kind has no place here, and we ask anyone who has experienced these behaviours to report them to us. We understand that access to university cannot be looked at in isolation from its culture, and that all students need to feel a sense of belonging to thrive." Let me read that again. "We understand that access to university cannot be looked at in isolation from its culture." OK. Our next question is from Chris.
Why are white people so uncharitable?
I'm always asking this question. So, yes, why are white people so uncharitable? This is because there's an all-white board of one of Britain's wealthiest charities, the Tudor Trust, has resigned following an anti-racism diversity drive. They have been replaced by 8 new trustees, reportedly with only 1 white member, and the long-serving executive director, Sir Godfrey Mitchell's grandson, has been succeeded by a black woman. So, I don't know did you see anything about this story?
Not so much, but it does seem to me like that's the effect of removing being colourblind from our societies. We're going to see more problems like this, and this is probably one of the more minor ones, to be honest.
Well, it is, but it's also like we are... Well, that's an interesting question. Colourblindness, but of course it's not colourblindness because it's actually colour enforcement, it seems like.
Yeah, a colour blindness, come on, it's not the 80s anymore. I think that's been and gone, and now it's very much paying attention to these issues. It doesn't make any sense. This was a family trust, and they would say, well, we weren't very diverse. You're a family. You don't have that many recessive genes between you. I don't know why you're surprised by this. But look what they've done now. It would have been almost funny if they said, we did the report, turns out we're not very representative, so we're just going to shut this down and keep the money. Thanks, bye. Do you know what I mean? That's going to be the
I think it would have been better if they'd said, look, we're just going to put this on hold for a couple of years, and we're going to start sleeping around with lots of different minorities. Come back to us in 20 years.
That would have been one way of doing it. I mean, I had a look at their website, and they talk about race a lot. So I guess they think they've got to be the change they want to see in the world. But if they're experts in what they do, keep the experts, surely. I don't know who the new people are, maybe they're experts as well.
Well, we'll find out. A spokesperson for the Tudor Trust said in 2022 the Board of Family Trustees started a challenging, widely publicised process of organisational change and subsequently agreed to centre racial justice to tackle all forms of injustice and achieve a fairer society for all. The trustees, including family members, some of whom departed their roles 3 years ago, with the final family trustee concluding their role in 2024, stepped down amicably and approved the appointment of the new board. They did not step down as a result of a race review, and there is no executive director in place. They are confident in Tudor's renewed vision, and we all feel it's a loss when efforts to address these issues are shut down before they even begin. It helps no one and only fuels division. Let me just read that again. They are confident the Tudors' renewed vision. Right, so our final question is from John.
Hi, Josh.
Hey.
Was Joan of Arc a woman?
Yes, was Joan of Arc a woman? So is this because you have feeling towards her? You just want to make sure?
Well, I may look a bit elderly, but she was before my time.
He's still got it. He's still got it. 79 years old. Very good. So this Joan of Arc was non-binary. Secondary school pupils are being taught lesson plans for English language students aged between 11 and 14 include the claim as the medieval figure cropped her hair in the male fashion and wore men's clothes. We've seen this before. This is not the first time that that has been accused, it's not an accusation, but that the Joan of Arc has been said to be non-binary just for cutting her hair. And the argument goes, of course, this is terribly offensive because it's two women saying, well, women, of course, you can't be a hero because it would have to be someone who's non-binary or identifies as partly a man who
It's
can be a
also
hero.
saying you can't have short hair, which has changed my mind. I didn't realise there was that, the famous time when Gail from Coronation Street became non-binary then, because she cut her hair. Yeah, anyone who's got Sinead O'Connor. How did I not see that coming from a mile off? So it turns out it's mainly hair-based. Of course, Joan of Arc was a woman. Why would Noah have married her, if not?
A little bit too subtle. Yep.
It's typical of you two to only see the appearance. It's what she got up to. She was another busy girl. Yeah, it's ridiculous, isn't it? I mean, I've done some quite masculine things in my life, not just working on headliners, but that's probably the main one. It doesn't make me a bloke or non-binary.
But isn't the scary thing this is actually being taught? This is in a textbook, Colin's textbook,
well, it is scary
11 to 14-year-olds.
Joan of Arc wouldn't have known about the concept of non-binary. She wouldn't have used that language. So the idea, they're revising history, aren't they?
And that is kind of how they teach it, though. I mean, the textbook does say some people say she was non-binary, so at least they've put that qualifier in there. But they also explain that she wouldn't have known about these concepts. So literally saying she was a thing that she would have been if she'd have heard about it, but she didn't, so she's not.
Yeah.
Great. There's 10 points.
But it's also just incredibly reductive and sexist. It's saying that being a woman is defined by the length of your hair and what the clothes that you wear.
Well, we all know it's about the size of the I'm being told to stop talking.
Right, next on Free Speech Nation, I'll be joined by journalist Nicole Lampart to discuss London Mayor Sadiq Khan's Eid message, labelled by some as an outright disgrace. We'll break the full video down after the break. See you in a second.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Retrograde?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
So this is 1955. It's a young Sidney Poitier, and we always think of him as this grand man of the cinema, lots of gravitas and dignity, but this is when he's still a young man. End of McCarthyism, start of civil rights movements. Studios and sponsors are terrified about anything related to socialism, un-American activities. He's just been in a few interesting projects, but he's teeing up for something on NBC on TV called A Man is 10 Feet Tall, written by his friend, and it's going to show him in a relationship, friendship with a white man, where the black man is the more dignified, the more professional one. And it's going to be quite radical. It's going to make him, and it's going to make his career, but NBC want him to sign an oath of loyalty, which is what happened in those days. This is all based on real events, where he would commit to doing absolutely nothing to embarrass the studio. They also want him to denounce Paul Robeson, who's a major activist.
Yes.
And go on radio and make a public denunciation. So he has to choose. There's the great line, what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and lose his soul? And the lawyer just says, you gain the whole world. But for him, it's a difficult one. But then there's the idea that you can be blackmailed. He has been going to some meetings with activists and civil rights movements. FBI is very heavy-handed in those days. He's then told, hey, you don't sign, they'll be knocking on your door, you could go to prison, blah, blah, blah. So it's this whole tussle written by Ryan Calais Cameron, who did the previous play for Black Boys, which was all about mental health.
Yes.
Huge new talent.
By the way, it sounds like a great topic.
It's fascinating. It's 90 minutes straight through, so it almost plays like a film. Heavy subject, but very witty. All great performances. Ivana Jeremiah is in the lead, and he really captures the moment.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. The Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, has sparked outrage this week for a video posted online to mark the Muslim festival of Eid. The Israeli embassy in London have accused him of parroting Hamas propaganda in the post, criticising a failure to condemn the group and a failure to mention the plight of the hostages that are still being held. An embassy spokesperson said and claimed that the death toll the mayor had quoted was Hamas propaganda and not based on facts. I'm now joined by journalist Nicole Lampart. Nicole, welcome to the show. Nicole, I had quite an emotional reaction as I was watching the video. In a second, we're actually going to break it down bit by bit, because normally when you and I have been fighting anti-Semitism together for years now, really, and the problem with it, of course, is it's so complicated.
Yeah.
And when you do try and break it, it requires this level of dissection to make it understood why it's so problematic.
Exactly. Like, when I first listened to it, I felt really hurt, but I struggled to really be able to explain why it was so painful. So I think it's a good idea to break it down into different elements to show that there are different aspects to it that make it, to me, dangerous, incendiary, and incredibly worrying as a Jewish Londoner.
Yeah, well, look, let's take a look at this. It's only about a minute and a half, but we're just going to break it down into little segments. So let's do the first segment now.
Eid marks the end of Ramadan, a month of fasting, charity, prayer and reflection. It's an opportunity to express our gratitude for everything we have and to strengthen our faith and spirituality. And now, as Eid arrives, it's time for joy, togetherness and community. A time when families and friends can celebrate by sharing good food and lively conversation.
Now, it should be pointed out, there's no problem there.
No.
I'm not like, oh my gosh, how dare he do a post about Eid. Of course, people are saying also, are you going to be doing a similar post explaining Easter or other holidays? But that's a little bit of whataboutery. It's interesting, you've seen some lovely images there, people having a nice time. There's no problem at all with any of this, right?
Absolutely.
Except, of course, that's not where it stopped. If it had just been that, brilliant.
Yeah.
Happy Eid.
And it could have just been that.
Yes. Well, let's see the next bit then.
Of course, this year, for many, the usual happiness we feel during Eid will be tempered by the appalling suffering and killing that continues in Sudan and Palestine. More than 50,000 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza as a result of Israel's ongoing military campaign, including more than 15,000 children. While in Sudan, tens of thousands have been killed and millions displaced by a devastating civil war now entering its third year. These betrayals of humanity should weigh heavily on our collective conscience.
OK, here's where the problem comes in. And it's almost like every sentence, there's another element to it. First of all, talking about killing, it's the deliberate killing of children, which, of course, is blood libel.
Yeah.
Talking about the way that it's framed, like somehow Israel is the cause of this, not mentioning Hamas. There's so many different elements here.
Yeah.
What sticks out for you?
Well, firstly, using Hamas figures, and the figures of 50,000 are disputed as it is, but also that we know that within those figures are Hamas fighters and anyone who's died in Gaza in that time. So that's people who've died of old age, people who have died of cancer, but he's saying that this number have been deliberately targeted. And then when you focus on the children, which no one else, you don't hear for any other war, and that is a blood libel which goes back thousands of years and started in this country, actually, the idea that Jews love to kill non-Jewish children, and they do it actually for a ritual. And it's a reason why Jews were thrown out of this country, and it's led to pogroms, so fights against Jews all over the world because of this remaining blood libel, this idea that Jews somehow, unlike any other humans on earth, they deliberately want to kill children.
This is it, and it's not placed within any context. There's no blame here of Hamas, who started this. It's a war, and wars are terrible, and civilians do die, and it's a tragedy, of course. But Hamas started it, and Hamas still holds Israeli citizens. So to not mention that, it's sort of maddening, because it's just this kind of blame game towards that Israel have somehow created this situation.
And in some ways dangerous, because it's almost pro-terrorist in the idea that because you're not mentioning them and you're making out that it's only one aggressor, then you're not talking about the other side, which are prescribed terrorists. And as you say, they started this war and they continue it, and the ceasefire ended because they didn't want to give back any more hostages. The war could end tomorrow if Hamas gave up their arms and if they returned the hostages. And even within Gaza, and of course this isn't discussed amongst within his video either, even within Gaza there are Palestinians who have been demonstrating over the last couple of weeks towards the end of Ramadan, so at this particular time, demanding the end of the war and demanding that Hamas gives up. They are calling Hamas terrorists, and they're saying give back the hostages because they know how this war will end.
Yeah, well, no usual suspects on the left or the far left are talking about this at all, about what's been happening. You're having Palestinians being captured, tortured, murdered by Hamas for speaking out against them. This is not mentioned here. Of course, some people would say, no, he's not talking about Israel. He also mentions Sudan. Well, he doesn't mention Syria. He's not talking about Turkey bombing the Kurds. There are many other situations. Yemen, the civil war. There are terrible problems. We've got Ukraine. These are universally terrible situations where civilians are dying. Yet he's spending most of his time focusing and quoting numbers about Israel, of course. And when he says these betrayals, and to talk about that as betrayals of humanity.
That to me is the most painful bit, because it's basically saying almost like Israel is outside of humanity. And that in itself is dehumanizing of Jewish people, of anyone who might say, I support Israel because I'm anti-terrorist, or I support Israel because of what happened in the Second World War, so I know what happens if there is no Israel. But he's basically saying they are not like other humans. So it's that kind of language that led to the Holocaust and has led to anti-Semitism throughout the years, which is saying Jews aren't like other people.
Yeah, literally dehumanising. And then there's the next clip here. It's a very short one.
But I'm proud that while the international community has chosen to avert its gaze, Londoners have not.
So here he's talking about how proud Londoners have not accepted this. So what he's not mentioning there, of course, is is he proud of the hate that's been seen on our streets for the last year and a half, of Jews afraid to go into the capital? He's meant to be the mayor for everyone, right? And here it seems to be some sort of tacit agreement or support for these marches that we've seen. We've seen people doing Zeke Hiles, we've seen people being racist, posters that are racist, people saying racist things, calling for the genocide of Jews. That just seems like he's just going, oh, well done, London.
Occasionally when people say to Sadiq Khan, And what about anti-Semitism? He's like, I'm against anti-Semitism and all forms of racism. But what we haven't seen him really do is call out the anti-Semitism on these demonstrations and say it's fine to demonstrate for Palestinians, which of course it is, and it's fine to demonstrate for the end of the war, which of course it is, but there should not be any anti-Semitism on it. There should not be blood libels. And we haven't seen him do that or any of the leaders of these demonstrations, which shows to me that they are tacitly, they are overtly anti-Semitic demonstrations that have been allowed to go on through our city for almost every week for the last 18 months.
Yeah, and look, here's the final bit, and this for me is actually the worst part of it all.
So thank you for showing us the best of humanity at a time when we see the worst of it.
Who exactly does he mean when he's talking about the worst of humanity? Because he's only given 2 examples here. Sudan, which he doesn't really get into, and he's talking about Israel, the world's only Jewish state.
Yeah.
Now, that for me is a massive dog whistle to the people who arguably this video is directed at, which is fellow Muslims.
Yeah.
To say that Jews are the worst of humanity, and if it's, and it is known, it's been proven that there is a huge contingent of Muslims, unfortunately, who are very anti-Semitic. To say that to them, to allude that that Jews are the worst of humanity, that is massively problematic.
I mean, we are living in a time when we are seeing the worst of humanity in Sudan. What we saw on October 7, and also we're seeing it in Ukraine. We're seeing rapes, we're seeing murders, we're seeing we are seeing, children and civilians being targeted. We certainly saw all of that on October 7, and it's a nasty war in Gaza. All wars are nasty, but one of the things that isn't really ever talked about is the fact that the Israeli army deliberately moves civilians out of the way and is fighting a terrorist group that hides amongst civilians, hides in hospitals, hides in schools, and none of that is ever mentioned. And it's used against Israel, the fact that they are then attacking Hamas in the schools. So yes, again, it's the dehumanisation of the worst of humanity, and we've heard that throughout the years, throughout the ages, and it's the anniversary of the liberation of Belsen in a few weeks. As I interviewed Simon Sharma last week, and that's what he talked about, the dehumanisation of Jews that has gone on for the last 2,000 years, even longer, going back to Tacitus, in the Roman writer.
Yeah, the thing is about Sadiq Khan is people have criticised him in the past. I just don't think he's a very good mayor.
Yeah.
It's no doubt he has received a lot of racist abuse. So when he is sort of speaking to racists, I think there are racists who will watch that video, people who hate Jews, who will see those things. And you would think that he would have a better idea of it, of what he's doing, if there is knowledge to that or intent towards that. But also, unfortunately, we've seen there was an incident where he accused the chief rabbi of being Islamophobic.
Yeah.
I now start to question what exactly Sadiq Khan is doing in terms of, I'm not saying that he's prejudiced, but is there a speaking to Muslims who are prejudiced, or is he just totally unaware of what he's doing? That's a problem. Certainly when we've got a mayor who is constantly speaking about diversity and how to be anti-racist. This doesn't feel like the actions of an anti-racist to me.
No, I completely agree, and I think that's the most upsetting thing, and that's why it feels dangerous, because it feels like he's deliberately riling people up. And that is the last thing a politician should be doing at this time when anti-Semitism has risen so highly. Islamophobia has as well, but anti-Semitism has risen much higher. And often it's targeted at Jews who, it doesn't matter whether they're Zionists or not. For example, a lot of the people that are attacked are the Haredi community because they are the ultra-religious, so they look obviously Jewish. And they don't believe in the State of Israel because it's a secular state, and they are waiting for the Messiah to come, for there to be the Israel that they want. But they are still being targeted, and we're not hearing from our mayor the things that we should be hearing, which is there is never any excuse for anti-Semitism, and we're not hearing that strongly from either him or any other Labour politicians, to be honest. It's all been so disappointing.
Yeah, certainly on the back of Corbynism and where that went, and the Labour Party being found guilty of discriminating against Jews.
And let's not forget, Sadiq Khan was one of the people that put Jeremy Corbyn's name forward. This is despite people in Labour certainly knew Jeremy Corbyn had a pet penchant for terrorists, both Hamas and Hezbollah and the IRA. And somehow they put him forward as they thought he could be leader. And as we know, he became leader and kind of started the uncorking of this anti-Semitism that we now see out in the open and being on our streets every week.
Yeah, well, the thing that I've seen online posting about this on X was a lot of responses, people going, he didn't say anything about Jews, but Jews are the worst people in the world. Anyway, thank you so much for coming in, Nicole Lampert. I should say, a spokesman for Sadiq Khan said the mayor has repeatedly conveyed his outrage at attacks by Hamas on Israel and has strongly condemned these acts of terrorism. He is deeply saddened by the loss of all lives and continues to support calls for a permanent ceasefire. Next on Free Speech Nation, Star Wars actor John Boyega has hit out at the franchise, calling it white elite space. More on this after the break.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Hello there. It's much drier across Spain and Portugal as we head into the new working week. There'll be plenty of sunny spells across much of the Med, but the risk of some showers at times too. Madeira's seeing some showers, but plenty of sunny spells too. Much of the dry weather across Spain and Portugal, though 1 or 2 showers are possible. Showers become more frequent from Italy, stretching across to Greece and Turkey. Temperatures a little on the disappointing side for the time of year, and it remains so for the next few days too.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Nana Queer, weekends from 3 p.m.
Prince Harry. Pot, kettle. This week, Prince Harry decided to step down from Centre Barley, which was a charity formed in 2006 in memory of his late mother, Diana, Princess of Wales, to help AIDS orphans in southern Africa. Sophie Chanduka is the chair of the charity he set up and has accused him of harassment and bullying at scale. After Harry and several others quit the organisation, she claimed that the Duke of Sussex was said to have initiated the campaign by unleashing the Sussex machine. So has the bullied become the bully? Remember this?
There's a hierarchy of the family. You know, there's leaking, but there's also planting of stories.
There was a war against Meghan to suit other people's agendas.
It's about hatred. It's about race. It's a dirty game.
Yet now it appears Harry has been accused of doing the very same thing that he's complaining about. Harry himself has also repeatedly used the media to berate his family in the form of that global interview with Oprah. How could we forget when he and his wife gaslit the world into believing that there was a racist in the royal family, only to later deny that that's what it was meant because he didn't actually use the word racist, instead calling it unconscious bias in an interview with Tom Bradbury years later. At no point before that did he correct the narrative with the press, if that was the case. The royal family suffered horribly, and the Queen went to her grave with this hanging over her legacy. There was a documentary where he, in my view, they insulted the UK. And, of course, how could we forget the book Spare? It came across to many as a whinge fest from someone who is incredibly privileged. Wow. And what a royal mess Prince Harry has made of absolutely everything. You know what? I am actually beginning to feel sorry for him. Oh, hold on. Am I falling into the victimhood trap?
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. Now, British actor John Boyega has criticised the Star Wars franchise in a new Apple TV Plus documentary reflecting on the racism he experienced after being cast. Let's have a listen.
Let me tell you, Star Wars always had the vibe of being in the most whitest elite space. Like, this franchise is so white that it's like a black person existing in that was something. And you can always tell it's something when some Star Wars fans try to say, well, we had Lando Calrissian and had Samuel L. Jackson. It's like telling me how many cookie chips are on the cookie dough. I'm like, bro, they just scattered that in there, bro.
Several members of the Star Wars fandom hit back, claiming they defended and supported the 33-year-old actor when he stepped into the role of former Stormtrooper Finn in The Force Awakens. Some fans declared that they would now turn their backs on the star after he insinuated that they were, in fact, racist. Well, we're joined now by the host of the Hollywood in Toto podcast, Christian Toto. Let's have an applause.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Christian, welcome. Did you see this clip? Have you watched this documentary?
I haven't seen the documentary. I heard about what he had to say, and I have to say, in the year 2025, it's not a great idea to insult your fan base by any stretch of the imagination. You wouldn't think that'd be such a critical thing to understand, but apparently it is. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. And I think even him name-checking some of the previous black actors in the saga, again, they were beloved for years, if not decades. So I really don't know where he's going with this, and it just seems like he's trying to stir up some sort of new controversy where I don't think anyone really exists.
No, I think that to claim that that Star Wars fans are racist because they are talking about their love of different characters who were played by black people it seems like a very weird way of claiming racism. I would argue, being initially a fan of that character, that he's right to be possibly upset because his character they basically badly wrote. His arc was terrible, and that was the issue. I don't think that was down to his ethnicity. I think it was just bad writing, which we saw in the rest of that series. It was a real letdown for everybody. But certainly his character kind of went nowhere, and I think he's rightly upset about it. But to use racism as some sort of excuse or reason for why that happened, that seems just it's wrong to me. Not morally wrong, just it's the wrong call.
Yeah, I mean, his misplaces anger, like you said, that character was introduced quite well in The Force Awakens. I think people were excited at this new generation of heroes mixing with the old generation as well and doing it, I think, competently. And then it just went nowhere. I'd be angry too, but I think he's kind of choosing the wrong people to get angry at. And if there was some issue with racism, there was actually a poster of one of the Star Wars films with him in it that was shown in China, and they either took him out or they shrunk his head quite dramatically. So again, that's a real life example of maybe some racist things in action, but not with the film itself and not with the fans. Listen, fans will love you if you're a heroic character, if you're well written, if you kind of bring the action and adventure. They have no problem with who you are and what your ethnicity is. Just be a hero in the grand Star Wars tradition. They'll love you.
So do you think that you kind of mentioned at the very beginning here that this is an interesting time for him to be making these kind of claims? Because do you think that Hollywood stars are aware that identity politics is on the decline?
I don't think so. They may start to get aware pretty darn soon. We've seen with Rachel Zegler-gate with the Snow White controversy that when you repeatedly insult the source material, when you're kind of pushing fans away, sometimes they don't show up when the movie's in theaters or even when it's streaming at home. I think there's been a real disconnect with actors and their fans and their audience in general when it comes to this issue. Don't play the victim. Just say, listen, we worked really hard on this project. We think we have a great story to tell. I mean, this kind of simple publicity should be it should be accepted by everyone in Hollywood, but it doesn't seem that way. They often want to play the victim. They often want to say, I've been wronged here, I've been wronged there. I think this particular actor, who's very good at everything he does, I just don't understand why he's going this direction. It just seems fruitless, really.
Yeah, but you wrote a book a couple of years ago about kind of cinema becoming woke, and it kind of ended with a slightly optimistic tinge. Now we're sort of 3 years later, do you think that the wheel is turning? Is it safe to go back to the cinema, basically?
It is changing, it is turning, but it's not gone forever. I think there are still quite a few, believers within the Hollywood community who still want to kind of put out this identity politics in the form of art. But the bottom line is, say what you will about woke. Often when you're telling a woke story, it isn't authentic, it isn't natural, it isn't kind of going with the flow of where the story could be. And just that recent Snow White movie is a great example. It's a story about a romance, at least part of the story. And yet when you watch Snow White, the new Disney film, they accept it, it's on the screen, but you can tell they're very uncomfortable with that element of the story. Well, why not lean into it? It's been a beloved part of the pop culture pantheon for decades, if not generations. Why would you want to diminish that? But when you're a woke storyteller, you've got different goals in mind, and I think that's where the problems come in.
I mean, have there been any recent films that give you hope that the tide is turning?
Well, I mean, look at Disney. Last year we had Moana 2, we had Inside Out 2, two of the biggest films in the last couple of years, and they weren't woke at all. They were just straightforward entertainment, good stories. The whole family can watch them. They're not lecturing us. It's just the way things used to be, the way things ought to be. Listen, there can be many movies with messages and themes and subtext. There's nothing wrong with that, but it has to be woven into the story. It has to be natural. It has to flow from an authentic place. When it doesn't, I think the audiences recognize it and they steer clear of it more often than not.
So do you think the cinema will rebound? All I'm speaking is anecdotally here. I've got a bunch of kids. I want to take them to the cinema, and I'm just not seeing much. You gave two examples. They were pretty much the only two sort of half-decent movies last year, maybe not Moana 2. But we used to go to cinema all the time. Like every week there'd be a release that was worth seeing. And now we're in the Easter holidays, and there's just really nothing.
Yeah, I think there are some really tough times ahead for Hollywood from the theatrical experience. There was a recent study that's saying Gen Z really cares more about what's on YouTube, what's on social media, as opposed to the big movie stars. I mean, that's a problem for Hollywood. They're going to have to figure out how to move forward. I think we need innovation. I think we need better stories. I think we need actors who are better ambassadors to their craft. I mean, listen, Tom Cruise is in his 60s, but he understands that thanking the audience, kind of reaching out to them, telling them, listen, I appreciate the fact you're here. You're making my dreams come true as an actor. I think that kind of sentiment really could go a long way. So better movies, better outreach, and less of this sort of, hey, you're racist because you didn't align with my worldview, or you think that my story didn't evolve in a certain way. I just don't think that helps anyone.
Well, let me ask you one final question. What would you say if I said to you chicken jockey? Are you familiar with that at all?
I am not. You've caught me off guard.
You've missed the clips then, because this is the Minecraft movie has come out, and supposedly it's terrible, but it's been a massive success around the world because of all these stupid memes, and kids are going absolutely berserk when people say things like chicken jockey.
Well, it's funny. I did see the movie. I think that little meme escaped me, but it's about a very popular video game that has existed and thrived for years now. So I think when there's an IP, the intellectual property that people connect with, and you are faithful to the source material, people will arrive. And that's another one of the lessons we're learning in Hollywood. I mean, Super Mario Brothers was a huge hit a couple of years ago. So video games are massive. They got to reach out to the audience. And if you connect with them, then they will come to theaters in droves, and they'll use all the new digital technologies to kind of tell their friends about it. That's a positive change. That's saying, hey, we recognize the audience. We know what you want. We're going to give it to you.
Well, I really hope that does happen, because I need some time off from talking to my kids this Easter. So thank you very much. That is the Hollywood in Toto podcast. Creator Christian Toto, thank you so much for joining us on the show. He also wrote an excellent book. Look it up on Amazon, Christian Toto. So, next on Free Speech Nation, it's time for our social sensations. You do not want to miss this. We have a Conservative pundit's comeback to a trans woman who claimed they were both on the same page. That and more after the break.
Good evening and welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Well, we have high pressure dominating through the rest of today and into next week, bringing plenty of dry and sunny days, but some chilly nights. Taking a look at the bigger picture then, we've got high pressure situated towards the northeast, still a bit of a squeeze in the isobars, but winds will be easing. So through the rest of this evening and overnight, for many of us, we hold on to plenty of clear skies. This will allow temperatures to quickly fall away. We'll see some mist and fog patches in places, especially across Northern Ireland and parts of Scotland. The far north of Scotland holding on to cloudier skies across Orkney and Shetland, but lows reaching down to -3 or possibly -5 in places. So it's going to be a chilly start out there, especially across parts of Scotland with a touch of frost. Cloudy across northern parts, so across Orkney and Shetland. Across Northern Ireland, bright, but we will see some mist and fog patches first thing. They'll gradually lift and clear. And then for much of England and Wales, plenty of sunshine to start Monday morning. And we hold on to that theme throughout much of Monday as well. Many places holding on to dry, sunny skies, still cloudy across Shetland and perhaps into Orkney later. But we'll see lighter winds as well, so they'll be easing, especially along the south coast. Otherwise, still going to be feeling warm in that sunshine, especially out towards the west. We've got highs of up to 16 or 17 degrees and perhaps just feeling a little bit more pleasant down that eastern coast. Through Tuesday, it's a very similar start, so plenty of bright skies out there, but perhaps a little bit chilly first thing. We'll also see some cloud just filtering in further across northern parts of Scotland, perhaps some fair weather cloud across East Anglia. And we'll see a bit more cloud on Wednesday as well for many of us before that clears. Otherwise, plenty of sunshine and turning warmer as we go Thursday and Friday.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. It's time now for Social Sensations, the part of the show where we take a look at what's been going viral this week on social media. First up's this video.
I had a teenage boy. I still have one, but he's 18 now. And I watched them be pushed farther and farther right by their schools. You suck. All of your instincts are bad. These girls are amazing. Look at you. You're pathetic. You're just barking at them constantly. They're not moving right. They're moving out of your stupid way.
So this clip, Cresta, is a year old, I think, but Elon Musk just reposted it and has brought it back to the world's attention. What do you think about it?
I'm not surprised if it's going viral. I can see why it might be popular.
Yeah, do you agree with the sentiment?
Yeah, I think that's about right, isn't it? We keep hearing what's bad about boys. We've just had Adolescence released. It's not very funny, is it? It's quite poignant.
No, you're right. Sorry. But it has gone somewhat viral here. What do you think? I mean, it isn't funny, but he is arguably speaking the truth. He's talking about how he's got a bunch of teenage kids, and this is what they're going through.
Yeah, I think people need to take a step back and look at that. I mean, they're causing this problem. If you make the word toxic synonymous with masculinity, eventually blokes will just think, oh, well, I might as well be like that then. If you're going to get hanged for a sheep, Might as well be hanged for a lamb, whatever that phrase is. Something about being well hung near a sheep. I'm not sure what that's about. But you might as well do it, I think, is the take-home message.
No, but this is it, Cresta. I mean, toxic should absolutely be taken away from masculinity and go where it belongs, which is femininity.
I couldn't possibly comment. I think this idea of toxic masculinity, it always portrays young men as predatory and calculating, and some of them are just a bit pathetic, and this isn't going to help, is it? That retreat of masculinity, awful, dangerous.
Yeah, well, look, let's have a look at this video. Hopefully it's a little bit funnier.
We are on the same page. If you don't look like a girl, get the out of the girl's bathroom.
I don't think you belong in the girls' bathroom.
But you wouldn't, my love, you wouldn't know.
Like,
but 4 years in, a lot of the issues that we're having is the divide where it's competition, my love. We're dating the same men.
We're
rather
definitely
we want
not dating the same men.
We are, baby. Trust me.
No, we are not.
We are.
I don't know about dating.
Yes,
the same
we are.
man.
We're dating the same dudes.
Can't say that.
I think that there's a competitive aspect to where, like,
Carolina,
you
this
would
is
not
where I just
know.
full on cut you off.
So, Cresta, I can speak to this actually from personal experience because I've dated them both.
I know that you didn't.
Yeah. She's that lady. She's hardcore. The lady, I mean, the lady. The woman.
The Conservative pundit. Yeah, I mean, it's so hard. I don't want to be mean, you know, I wish everyone well, but I did know. I did know, yeah.
Yeah, well, what do you think?
You tell, it's amazing. You got some extra sense. No, you've
This
got
is
one
what's
of the
so-
5 senses, haven't you?
This is
We're dating
so
the same
funny.
people.
Might have something to do with it.
Yeah, that clip in the olden days would have been a Jerry Springer show, and then they would have brought out the bloke. Like,
You know
we're
what?
dating the same dude, and they just caption the dude, and he comes out.
I think that you've absolutely encapsulated what's the problem. I think society as we know it has gone downhill since the end of the Jerry Springer show.
Yeah.
That is arguably, we need him to...
Or went downhill during the Jerry Springer show.
OK, there's those different interpretations. Fine, fair enough. Well, look, we've got just enough time for a question from our audience. Tracy, you have a question for us?
I wanted to come back to the issue of accents and dialects and class. There seemed to be an implication in the conversation that there is a thinking that if you have a certain accent, you are therefore a member of a certain class. And I kind of feel that that's wrong.
OK, well, I guess the argument is that certainly posh people, and there is such a thing as a working-class accent, and there's also a sort of posh accent. The interesting thing, what happened at my public school was everybody tried to speak like they were working class, because it was seen as being bad to be privileged in that way.
Yeah. I think you can tell there's some information, because there are some posh people who go to schools and then you meet them later in life and they go, oh, no, actually, I'm from Yorkshire. What? And so I think there are some people who've had an accent knocked out of them because of their privilege. So that's why you probably, if you're bet in the house, you'd say, oh, I hear that accent, I'm guessing their class.
Yeah, I mean...
Isn't that sad, though, that people feel that they need to drop their native accent in order to get on in life?
Yeah, I think that is sad, and I think that's why we have an issue in this country with class and with accents in that way. Anyway, thank you so much to my panel, Stephen Allen, Cresta Wetton, and of course all of my brilliant guests and the studio audience. If you want to come in, please go to www.sroaudiences.com. Stay tuned for the brilliant Ben Leo tonight with Alex Armstrong, and have a wonderful week. Thank you so much for joining us.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening and welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Well, we have high pressure dominating through the rest of today and into next week, bringing plenty of dry and sunny days, but some chilly nights. Taking a look at the bigger picture then, we've got high pressure situated towards the northeast, still a bit of a squeeze in the isobars, but winds will be easing. So through the rest of this evening and overnight, for many of us, we hold on to plenty of clear skies. This will allow temperatures to quickly fall away. We'll see some mist and fog patches in places, especially across Northern Ireland and parts of Scotland. The far north of Scotland holding on to cloudier skies across Orkney and Shetland, but lows reaching down to -3 or possibly -5 in places. So it's going to be a chilly start out there, especially across parts of Scotland with a touch of frost. Cloudy across northern parts, so across Orkney and Shetland. Across Northern Ireland, bright, but we will see some mist and fog patches first thing. They'll gradually lift and clear. And then for much of England and Wales, plenty of sunshine to start Monday morning. And we hold on to that theme throughout much of Monday as well. Many places holding on to dry, sunny skies, still cloudy across Shetland and perhaps into Orkney later, but we'll see lighter winds as well, so they'll be easing, especially along the south coast. Otherwise, still going to be feeling warm in that sunshine, especially out towards the west. We've got highs of up to 16 or 17 degrees and perhaps just feeling a little bit more pleasant down that eastern coast. Through Tuesday, it's a very similar start, so plenty of bright skies out there, but perhaps a little bit chilly first thing. We'll also see some cloud just filtering in further across northern parts of Scotland, perhaps some fair weather cloud across East Anglia. And we'll see a bit more cloud on Wednesday as well for many of us before that clears. Otherwise, plenty of sunshine and turning warmer as we go Thursday and Friday.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be driving away with this brand new Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps 4, comes with sky roof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For a chance to win a motorhome and cash, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have